Arcane is based on Riot's League of Legends, a game I had the privilege of saying I'd never played before. Arcane is one of those shows where you see it get nominated for 22 awards and go, seriously? It didn't just win all of them outright? I'll be talking about spoilers obviously, so if you haven't already, please go watch it and then come back once you've finished in 6 hours. Here's what I'll be talking about if you want to skip to anywhere specifically. Having almost zero knowledge on League, watching Arcane was gripping. I was genuinely on the edge of my seat the entire time. And yeah, I didn't think Jinx or Violet were going to die, but I was so worried for Caitlyn and Ekko. I was quite shocked to see them as children when it started because I'd only seen them as adults. I also watched it all in a single day, so I didn't have time to sit and properly think about what would happen next. I got to experience it alongside the characters. It was super interesting to learn about Hextech's origins and capabilities. The scene which laid out how the gems works is masterful. It brings the main focus down to how powerful even just one of them is. The manipulation of energy and the tearing of the world readying to be released as it rolls across the floor demonstrate such. Speed ramping between real-time and slowed reality allows for us to narrow in on what's important and emphasizes the story.
It's a shame they didn't slow down the real important things.
They really don't hold back with the severity of it once it touches the wall. This show does something so incredibly simple yet so criminally rare. Consequences. I cannot tell you how rewarding it is to see something be brought to its full potential in such a way. The characters, their personalities, the world, it changes. Vi is no longer the supporting older sister who works in a group defending those she loves, because they're dead now. And in some capacity this also applies to Powder. Jinx has replaced her. Vi is independent and relies on herself because who else did she have? Caitlyn was a great character, and I think some of that came from not knowing if she was going to live. Arcane is complex in the best way with how it combines multiple storylines. The final scene was beyond well done with how the suspense was built up for it. The location was so fitting for everything too. The rundown building reminds me of the Caribbean Netherlands. Why? Well, it has a population of nearly 25,000. Which is how many subscribers I'd have if just half of everyone who'd seen my content in the past month were subscribed. I'm so sorry. The raw emotion and desperation of everyone there, and the absolute bomb of a line.
I paid your girlfriend a visit this morning.
What did you do?
I made her a snack.
Actually made me pause the show to cool off. The insanity of Jinx and her trauma makes her prone to unpredictable behaviour. This allows for a notably distinct character capable of making thrilling moments. She could have someone down the plate and yet it would still make sense if there wasn't. Jinx, instead, perfectly hints at knowing the intimacy between Kate and Vi. Now, completely unrelated, I really like a good cupcake. Hey. See, yeah, now that's better. There's nothing being implied, it's nothing. If you don't stop, a poll on my community tab for this final scene conclude that the least favourite character was Silco out of the final four, which I think is super interesting. Unsurprisingly, Jinx swept the table by a long shot. I'm also including Shimmer in this section because while yes, it is original to Arcane, I've seen some speculation in the community about sharing properties with Hornet because she's void. I'm kidding. Kidding. Please don't hurt me. After looking into it more myself on the wiki, I agree to some extent. They absolutely share visual similarities, and the effects of both of them seem connected. Vander was such an incredible character. It was devastating to see him die how he did. I think it was particularly harsh considering the fact that he almost did survive. Well, all of them really. Being in such a vulnerable spot, Vi was able to prove that she had what it took.
But no.
Riot had to develop their characters and have
consequences.
Ekko's relationship with Vi, Powder, Vander and Benzo was really well done. And he's such a cool character too, especially when we see him and the other Firelights raiding the ship that Caitlyn ends up investigating. The fight scene against Jinx was explosive. It goes so deep into the relationship between them, and the story told within the short time given without any dialogue is nothing short of incredible. I'm not really sure, but hot take potentially. I didn't really like Jayce by the end of the season. I think he was much more likable at the start. Hold up, is that Rosé? I completely agree with Viktor when he says,
"We lost ourselves, lost our dream."
Speaking of, what a character. He's a champion I've since found out, so of course he couldn't have died, but I was so immersed in his story, his will to go on, I seriously thought the better one of the two was going to die. As I mentioned earlier, and back in April,
You're hot, Cupcake.
I really liked Caitlyn. Did I seriously write this? I really liked Caitlyn, and not just because she's cute and hot, and what is it with people in their 20s? A lot of it comes down to her developing relationship with Vi, them growing alongside each other, learning and adapting to each other's worlds while each of them shows off their expertise. One scene I found particularly warming was Caitlyn giving up her gun for Shimmer when Vi was dying, to sacrifice the only thing that could protect her, and she was willing to give it up for the chance Vi could live. One of my favourite scenes was when she was searching the ship and piecing everything together, which might be less so to do with her character. The meaning and actual symbolism behind her wounds with the blood and the water mixing in the shower was something more than just your English teacher saying the character's sad because there's blue curtains. I'd love to go into more detail about these scenes in another video, but that's it briefly. In my opinion, as, again, someone who hasn't played League of Legends before watching the show, Silco was more than suitable to be a recurring antagonist. I think the way he was introduced so thoroughly as a real threat actually established him in the world as a power to be feared. I don't think it comes as a surprise that I hated him in the best possible way, with him being the villain. His goals and motives were so well established that you could tell he really believed in what he thought and he wasn't just doing everything because why not. In the final episode, I shifted away from hating him. I really felt remorse for his character after what was done. I truly felt as if he cared for Jinx, and honestly, just the amount of raw emotion they show really ties their relationship together over the last 6 years. The music from Arcane is amazing, and I've been running out of positive adjectives to describe just how good everything that makes up this show is since the introduction. The fact that the songs don't need dialogue in the background goes to show that. I'm not going to pretend I'm some music expert, but I'll try my absolute hardest to briefly explain why I think some of the songs in Arcane are so powerful. When I started watching Arcane, I didn't like Playground almost at all, but that could also have something to do with Arcane being very different to what I would usually watch, and it was in a world that I didn't know what to expect out of. There is something so special about the fight Dynasties and Dystopia plays over, but I just generally love the song. There's a punchy start and a catchy chorus. The song Goodbye from the end of episode 3 encapsulates all these intense feelings the audience is working their way through. This is done with the characters who are left and allows for a lyrical, peaceful and gratifying way to release a lot of built up tension in a way that feels natural with grief, letting us transition all the way from denial and anger to just accepting that's how it is now. It's no mistake that the camera focuses in on her eye as the music starts, as it becomes a defining part of her character throughout the rest of the season. The short remainder of the episode has the camera pulling further and further away from the group, the fire, the light, the hope, all fading to black. But not before the animators craft a subtle hint of a halo ring that looks like Silco's eye. Powder is transitioning over to Silco to become Jinx. Of course, with the song being called Goodbye, the symbolic nature of leaving the children behind in Act 1 is also present. What could have been was flawless in every way possible. It absolutely knocked the tea party scene out of the park. This next point realistically applies for all the songs I've mentioned, but no dialogue is ever spoken during these songs. Usually I'd say that the music is there to assist the visuals, but for this song specifically, I really believe that the visuals are there to assist the music. It's so powerful in the way that it's built up with strings and vocals that I couldn't compare it to anything else that brings back such strong imagery to mind. I of course will forever stand by Stoic Ship and Together from Afar from the How to Train Your Dragon franchise because they are legitimately batshit insane with how they handle emotions, but I think they do it differently. What Could Have Been has never made me cry, whereas the other two have almost every time. There's something so unique about What Could Have Been that I don't feel that way, and I'm sure it's similar for you. I just sit and wait for the emotions to go past, but they linger on. I really have to give it to them. It's incredible work. This is more general, but those starting credits are beautiful. Not only do they look stunning, but they also drop hints to future events later on in the season. You can tell how talented the people who worked on this are, because not only are they not afraid to have consequences, which demonstrates the immense amount of thought and care put into the story, but I think the final episode truly shows off their skill. It's not so much to do with the animation, the story, or anything like that. They were confident enough to have an entire scene in the same location between 4 characters last almost 15 minutes. A feat most shows could not even dream of. There's no need to swap scenes because you're immersed. They have you right there in the scene with them, dying to find out what happens next while also not wanting it to progress at all. They masterfully play the audience through dark humor that doesn't feel out of place and doesn't break the tension of the scene, but it stays in form with what we'd expect from all the characters out of such a dire situation. In my mind, there was every chance that any one of them or all of them were just going to die right there at the end of it all. My take as a non-League player is probably not that different to your own. Riot made something so exceptional and so well thought out that anyone, no matter their background with the franchise, could enjoy it. In fact, I would argue that Arcane was better if you hadn't played the game. The curiosity and suspense they leave you hanging on to is made even more impactful. Arcane is nothing short of a masterpiece in every respect, and I, along with all of you, am eagerly awaiting Season 2. If you want me to cover more stuff with Arcane, or some scenes in particular, please let me know, I'm interested. I really hope you enjoyed. If you did, please consider leaving a like or subscribing. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.